Chaos has erupted in Iraq after a prominent Shiite cleric announced he is quitting politics.
Tensions have soared in Iraq amid a political crisis that has left the country without a new government, prime minister or president for months. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. Government workers may expect another salary hike in 2024. The Department of Health approves CHED position to waive vax requirements for in-person classes in colleges and universities. The country's dengue cases has breached more than 100,000 cases since January, according to the Department of Health. Pakistanis affected by massive flooding in the country lives in makeshift camps. And Russia names new Ukrainian murder suspect in Moscow bomb assassination of Daria Dugina. Government employees may have another salary increase in 2024. The assessment was made by Finance Secretary Ben Diokno. Diokno said that the government-owned and controlled corporation will first study the new tranche of salary standardization. Because under the proposed 5.268 trillion peso budget for 2023, there is 49.5 million pesos allocated to the GOC's Governance Commission. From the said fund, the possible new increase in the salary of government employees will be withdrawn.
The Department of Health has expressed its full support to the decision of the Commission on Higher Education to remove the vaccination requirement for tertiary students and personnel who will participate in face-to-face classes. In a statement, the DOH said that the CHED consulted the health agency before arriving at the updated policy to allow students and HEI personnel, regardless of vaccination status, to participate in face-to-face classes. DOH officer in charge, Maria Rosario Vergeiro, said the Department of Health fully supports the Commission on Higher Education as it updates guidelines for full face-to-face classes in higher education institutions. During the DOH and CHED meeting, it was noted that there is already a high COVID-19 vaccination coverage in the Philippine higher education, with 77% of students and 90% of HEI personnel already fully vaccinated against the virus. Moreover, data from DOH showed there are less infections in the 18 to 25 age group compared to other age groups. The removal of the vaccination requirement for in-person classes is also supported by the global community, including the World Health Organization and UNICEF. However, Vergeiro strongly recommended that unvaccinated individuals have their shots to keep our wall of immunity strong.
Dengue cases continue to rise in the country as the Department of Health already recorded 118,785 cases since this year started. The DOH noted that the tally was from January 1 to August 13, adding that the number of cases this year is 143% higher compared to the reported cases during the same period in 2021, which was only at 48,867. Most dengue cases were reported in Central Luzon at 21,247. It was followed by Central Visayas with 11,390 cases and Metro Manila with 11,064. From July 17 to August 13, the DOH said 19,816 dengue cases were recorded. During the said period, the majority of the cases were logged in Central Luzon with 3,457, Metro Manila with 3,131, and Cordillera Administrative Region or CAR with 2,106. The DOH said 6 out of 17 regions exceeded the epidemic threshold in the past 4 weeks or from July 17 to August 13. And these regions are Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, CAR, and Metro Manila. A total of 400 deaths due to dengue were reported across the country since January. There were 35 deaths in January, 31 in February, 37 in March, 47 in April, 62 in May, 74 in June, 100 in July, and 14 in August.
The Supreme Court has issued a temporary restraining order against the implementation of the no-contact apprehension policy. Oral arguments on the petition is set by the court on January 24, 2023. Nadine Aguilar has the report.
Big news today regarding Metro Manila's No-Contact Apprehension Program, or NCAP. The Supreme Court issued a temporary restraining order against the NCAP measure. In a brief release to the media, the court said that the TRO is effective immediately and essentially prohibits any apprehensions through the NCAP programs and ordinances related thereto until further orders. The court also instructed the Land Transportation Office and the 5 cities of Metro Manila not to implement the NCAP. The Supreme Court also set the oral arguments and questions regarding the petition and NCAP's policy on January 24, 2023. Among those who filed petition were transport groups Kapit, Pasang Mazda, Altorap, and Acto. Attorney Juman Paa, who was fined 20,000 because of NCAP, also joined the petition. Respondents of the petition are the LTO and the local government of Manila, Quezon City, Valenzuela City, Parañaque City, and Muntinlupa City. The petitioners insisted that the implementation of NCAP has no legal basis and it is unlawful. Hence, it should be voided. According to them, NCAP violates the rights of an individual under the Constitution, including the right to privacy of the citizens as well as the right to due process. Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Typhoon Gardo, with international name Hanamnor, has developed into a tropical cyclone, making it the 7th tropical cyclone to enter the Philippines this year. According to the 5 p.m. forecast of the State Weather Bureau Pagasa, Gardo was last seen 1,185 kilometers east of extreme northern Luzon, moving west-southwestward at 15 kilometers per hour and packing winds of 55 kph near the center and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Gardo is projected to enter the Philippine area of responsibility by Wednesday morning. This tropical cyclone is forecast to intensify into a tropical storm within the next 24 hours. However, the disturbance may degenerate into a remnant low by Thursday afternoon as Hanamnor begins to assimilate its circulation. Pagasa added that Gardo is unlikely to directly affect sea conditions over coastal waters, while also unlikely to affect the weather condition in the country within the forecast period. Considering these developments, the Public and Disaster Risk Reduction and Management offices concerned are advised to take all necessary measures to protect life and property. Persons living in areas identified to be highly or very highly susceptible to these hazards are advised to follow evacuation and other instructions from local officials.
In other news, with nowhere to go, people in Pakistan who have been displaced because of widespread flooding are setting up makeshift camps. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their homes. Entire villages have been wiped out by the flooding caused by this year's monsoon rains. With nowhere to go, makeshift camps are springing up across the country. Some are located in schools or on military bases. Others are just on the side of the road, wherever people can find a place to put up some type of accommodation. But life in these camps is miserable. There is no place for people to shower or bathe. Food is in short supply. Although people are sending relief goods to the camps, there is no organized distribution of them. The death toll from the flooding has surpassed the 1,100 mark. It is expected to go higher as a number of villages in mountainous regions have been cut off after flood-swollen rivers washed away roads and bridges.
Meanwhile, Pakistan's climate change minister says 1/3 of the country is underwater. Sherry Rayman says the devastation is worse than anything seen in the past. And Rayman has harsh words for countries that practice environmental recklessness.
So really, it's time for the big emitters to review their policies. We have crossed what is clearly, we've crossed a threshold, not just Pakistan, but many countries. The global climate has crossed a threshold earlier than expected, and we are the ground zero as the tipping point happens.
Up next, Russian forces advances on Ukraine's stronghold in Donbass. Solomon Islands suspends U.S. naval visits as China ties grow. And chaos erupts in Iraq after Shiite cleric resigns. Mata ng Agila International will be right back.
Mas masaya ang umaga dahil 1 year na tayo, mga kada.
Come on, boy.
New season, new set, fresher look, new stories on its 16th year na ang Moments! Dalawa po sa miyembro ng aming pamilya ang aking makakabonding.
Sino yung pinaka-paboritong mong anak?
Ay! I knew it! Tita Juday has been telling me na, uy, crush ka ni Christopher or ni Aries, that was his character name sa serye. Pagling ko, ando na siya. Ah! Sabi naman, cringy, sabi naman anak ko. At hando po namin sa inyo ang talaga namang heartfelt chikahan and helpful tips na hindi lamang pang mommies dahil ang Moments hindi lang mommy-friendly, kundi pang buong family na!
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's dance together sa Net 25.
You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. Russia's FSB security service named another Ukrainian it said was part of a team that assassinated Daria Dugina. Daria was the daughter of a prominent Russian ultranationalist who believes Ukraine should be absorbed into a new Russian empire. The FSB said in a statement that the new suspect, a man born in 1978, whom it named as Ukrainian national Saiganenko, entered Russia and drove around with principal suspect Natalia Vov. An 11-minute CCTV footage retrieved by the FSB also showed Saiganenko assembling the car bomb in a rented garage in Moscow. He also secured fake documents and number plates for Vov, who planted the bomb on Daria's car. The man had exited Russia via Estonia a day before the attack, according to the FSB. Russian President Vladimir Putin called the assassination of Daria a vile, cruel crime, while Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov promised no mercy for those responsible for Dugina's death.
Russian-led forces have advanced on Ukraine's stronghold in Donbass. Igor Zhadanov of RT News has the story.
I could say we are in the epicenter of the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the Donbass. How come, you might ask? Well, Kiev has been promising to go on the offensive for quite a while now. And in fact, they have been attempting to recapture the previously lost positions and villages for weeks here. But, well, to no avail.
This Hail Mary attempt at a counter-assault, in fact, cost the Ukrainians a few more strongholds, lost to a company as efficient in battle as it is closed for outsiders, the Wagner Group. How do they think? How do they fight? How do they win? Our filming crew got an exclusive glimpse at the inner workings of the orchestra.
We walked from here. We moved carefully and quietly in anticipation that the enemy may be in front of us. We came to the dam, we look around and asked for permission to continue. When we got approval, we moved forward as a group. We passed maybe 50, 60 meters, and then we made contact. After it started, we moved back just right here. We lay down under the dam. The enemy was shooting at us. They thought we were sitting at the bottom of the dam. They tried to kill us. They did not succeed. We were waiting for help in this house. Help arrived from the left flank, where there were snipers and machine guns. They blocked the attacks, holding the left side where the snipers were.
With tanks and rockets, Ukrainian troops blew a hole in the dam, hoping the flood will stop the musicians' advance in its tracks. Didn't work.
In this house, on the second floor, there was a machine gun firing at us. Downstairs, there was a Ukrainian soldier with a Kalashnikov, and he was shooting at us as we crawled across the wasteland. After we fell back, we called our artillery support so they would help us. Those guys knew what they were doing. They did a fantastic job. After that, we could continue onward.
Several waves of reinforcements failed to tip the balance of power in Ukraine's favor here. Black body bags, most in factory packaging, serve as an indicator of how hastily the defenders had to abandon the village.
Our enemies were hiding here. This is their Kalashnikov light machine gun. They treated their wounds here. There were about 6 people.
This charred carcass of Ukraine's T-72 tank is all that remains of what used to be a bastion of defense just outside the town of Artyomovsk. I'm Mukesh reporting from the Donbass RT.
Russia is extending aid to the Central African Republic to help fight terrorism and crimes. Paula Slyer of RT News has the details.
A cry from how these streets looked a few short months ago. Then bandits were on the loose and rebels terrorized homes. Rape, murder and theft were commonplace. Now authorities are able to keep a lid on things.
This is the anti-gang police. They patrol and maintain control in the various neighborhoods of the city of Bangui. As you can see, their faces are covered. It's important for them to be anonymous because the areas that they're checking are the neighborhoods from where they come. They're looking for illegal weapons that are being smuggled, drugs, any kind of stolen goods. And really, they're keeping a tight lid, making sure that the city is functioning and safe.
Calm returned to the Central African Republic at the end of 2018 after the president asked Moscow for assistance. Security officials are grateful.
We would like to thank our partners from Russia. I think that the Russian instructors helped us a lot in our operational and tactical training. We have conducted a lot of exercises with Russian instructors. We are witnessing improvement, more stability in the country. It used to be a bit difficult to maintain stability because we only worked with the resources we had at that time. Thanks to the allies who support us now, we can say that stability is gradually emerging in Central African society.
The city is safer now. There is peace. The city is calm. There are only small bandit groups left that carry out raids, and we are relentlessly pursuing them. We are trying to protect the city from the raids that these bandit groups commit. This is all due to our Russian allies who came to help us, providing us with their forces and teaching us military tactics. And thanks to the funds that they provide us, the city is safer now.
We've now been travelling about 2 hours from the capital to a military base on the outskirts of the country. It's here where Russian instructors have been training soldiers from around the country.
The first job of the Russian military instructors was to unite the country's armed forces.
The country needs a significant number of security, military and police personnel. They need to be trained, equipped, deployed to remote areas for conducting operations. That's why the government of the Central African Republic wants to have instructors who have a proven track record and can support the military and police.
That number will be expanded to 3,000. And the pressure is now on for the UN Security Council to lift its arms embargo on the country. While Moscow was instrumental in having it partially lifted, the blockade prevents the army from getting much-needed weapon supplies.
At the same time, terrorists and mercenaries continue to get weapons through their illegal channel. This situation may benefit certain Western countries because it opens the door to destabilizing security in the Central African Republic through supplying bandits with weapons.
What's ironic is that some watchdogs have accused Russia of bad behavior.
Frankly speaking, we see how different organizations sending in soldiers to the country profit from the situation. They carry out business projects which are only possible in a weak and unstable country.
This is the simulation of the typical liberation of a village here in the Central African Republic. As has been happening right across the country, the village is controlled by rebels, and then approaching from different directions are the soldiers. Some are engaged in fighting, some are detracting attention, and some are actually actively liberating the village itself. Now, the whole thing takes about 3 to 5 minutes. You can see over here the rebels acting as if they're dying, and you can see the soldiers approaching from behind. This is exactly the scenario that has played out in tens of towns across the country and hundreds of villages, to the extent that 80% of the Central African Republic has now been liberated. After months and months of violence and instability, the Central African Republic is finally safe. Paul Islia, RT, Bangui, Central African Republic.
Two United States warships sailed through the Taiwan Strait. This is the first such transit since China staged unprecedented military drills around the island. The U.S. 7th Fleet says the pair of Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruisers, the USS Antietam and the USS Chancellorsville, conducted the routine transit on Sunday through waters where high seas freedoms of navigation and overflight apply in accordance with international law. The U.S. Navy says the passage demonstrates the United States' commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait soared to their highest level in years this month after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taipei.
Beijing urges the United States to stop provocation in the Taiwan Strait. The statement comes a day after 2 U.S. warships sailed the waters between mainland China and Taiwan. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Zhao Lijian says the passage is not a commitment to freedom and openness. Zhao says it is a provocation to seek freedom of movement and a deliberate undermining of regional peace and stability.
The Solomon Islands has suspended all visits from the U.S. Navy, the American Embassy in Australia said, heightening concerns over the growing influence of China in the region. A U.S. Embassy spokeswoman also confirmed the suspension in a statement, saying the United States received formal notification from the government of Solomon Islands regarding a moratorium on all naval visits, pending updates in protocol procedures. The move comes a week after Washington said a U.S. Coast Guard ship was denied permission to refuel in the Solomons' capital of Honiara. The United States said it is disappointed that its Coast Guard ship was not able to make the planned stop, but vowed that it will continue to closely monitor the situation. It wasn't clear whether the suspension also applied to the navies of other countries, including close partner Australia.
Chaos has erupted in Iraq after a prominent Shiite cleric announced he's quitting politics. Hundreds of Muqtada Sadr's supporters stormed the Iraqi parliament to express their anger. At least 15 of his loyalists were killed and hundreds of others were injured. A security source says at least 7 shells fell in the high-security green zone, which houses the country's government buildings and diplomatic missions. Protests have spread to other parts of the country. The military has announced a nationwide curfew. The government has suspended cabinet meetings because of the unrest. Tensions have soared in Iraq amid a political crisis that has left the country without a new government, prime minister, or president for months.
Coming right up, Shell CEO says Europe's gas crisis could last several winters. Egypt dims lights to boost foreign reserves. And Iglesia Ni Cristo extends care for humanity in Red Deer, Canada. Catch these stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Welcome sa aming bagong tahanan. Say hi, tayo.
Hi! Bossing Poleng, meron akong kwento.
Yay! Story time!
Itago nyo na lang ako sa pangalang Jojo.
Jojo nga po pala. Boyfriend ko.
Good evening po. Ikaw!
Kuya ko nga dyan!
May bago tayong tambayan.
Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Kauna-unahang eksklusibong panayam kay Senador Robin Hood Padilla matapos mahalan.
Lahat ng katangian para hindi ako iboto, nasa akin na.
Sasagutin punto por punto ang mga isyong binabato sa kanya.
Committee ng Revision ng Constitution. Anong balak mo doon?
Aalamin, uusisain, walang preno.
Meron bang gentleman dito? Di siyempre, walang una na dyan, kung di ang inyong lingkod.
Kasama si Attorney Sal Panedo sa Counterpoint tuwing Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
It's going to be a beautiful morning dahil 1 year na tayo, mga kada!
Katangian para hindi ako iboto, nasa akin na.
Sasagutin punto por punto ang mga isyong binabato sa kanya.
Committee ng Revision ng Constitution. Anong balak mo doon?
Aalamin, uusisain, walang preno.
Meron bang gentleman dito? Di siyempre, walang una na dyan, kung di ang inyong lingkod.
Kasama si Attorney Sal Panedo sa Counterpoint tuwing Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
Hello mga ka-moments! New season, new set, fresher look, new stories on its 16th year na ang Moments! Dalawa po sa miyembro na aming pamilya ang aking makakabonding.
Sino yung pinaka-paboritong mong anak?
Ay! I knew it! Tita Juday has been telling me na uy, crush ka ni Christopher or ni Eris. That was his character name sa serye. Pagling ko, ando na siya. Ah! Sabi naman, cringy. Sabi naman anak ko. At handog po namin sa inyo ang talaga namang heartfelt chikahan and helpful tips na hindi lamang pang mommies dahil ang Moments hindi lang mommy-friendly, kundi pang buong family na.
Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Welcome sa aming bagong tahanan. Say hi, Tami.
Hi! Bossing Poleng, meron akong kwento.
Yay! Story time!
Itago nyo na lang ako sa pangalang Jojo.
Jojo nga po pala. Boyfriend ko.
Good evening po. Ikaw!
Puyok mo nga dyan!
May bago tayong tambayan.
Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Araw-araw, together tayong gumigising.
Together natin inaalam ang mga balita.
Pangmalakasan ang ating power kapag tayo ay together.
Nakikipagkulitan kasama kayo together.
Together tayo sa lungkot at saya sa bawat umaga. Isang taon na tayo together, mga kata!
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
We now welcome you back to Mata ng Agila International. Europe is currently crippled by gas shortages, which could last several winters. That's according to Shell CEO Ben van Beurden at a recent press conference in Norway. Beurden warns that Europe may continue to ration access to energy levels and find alternative supplies. The energy crisis in Europe is unprecedented and is more severe compared to the continent's gas crisis back in the 1970s and the 1980s due to an Iranian revolution. According to Great Britain's energy regulator, Ofgem, gas prices in Europe increased by 550% in the last 12 months and is expected to increase by 80% in October. The astronomical increase in gas was brought on by the Russian-Ukrainian war, which cut gas supplies from Moscow. As the continent braces for a tough winter this year, Europeans are also buckling under the pressure of increased inflation rates, with the continent experiencing the threat of recession.
In Switzerland, the country is bracing itself for looming power shortages. Although Switzerland is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, it relies heavily on Russian gas and French nuclear power, both of which are in short supply. The government is warning of power shortages this winter and possibly blackouts. In the summer months, there is plenty of power from hydroelectric plants spread across the Swiss Alps. However, in the winter, the country has to import electricity. And here is the problem. Russia has slashed gas deliveries to much of Europe because of the war in Ukraine. And France has halted electricity production at half of its nuclear plants because of corrosion problems. All of that means when it gets cold, Swiss residents could face hours-long power cuts.
French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne warned company bosses on Monday about the risk of energy rationing this winter and urged them to take steps to reduce their consumption. Borne said they can overcome the risk of shortages if they will just act collectively. She added that if they end up with rationing, companies will be the most affected. Borne said the government was already drawing up contingency plans, which included a quota trading system that would enable companies to buy and sell power quotas. The government was also preparing measures to support companies that would be too severely affected by rationing. The clear warning about the risk of shortages further underlines efforts by the government to prepare public opinion and businesses for looming difficulties caused by the ongoing war in Ukraine. Speaking last week at the first cabinet meeting, President Emmanuel Macron warned that France might need to make sacrifices as a result of its support for Ukraine and its fight against Russia. France is more sheltered than many European countries from the surge in gas prices caused by Russia's decision to reduce its exports to Europe after its invasion of Ukraine in February. France generates some 70% of its electricity from a fleet of 56 nuclear reactors, but 32 are currently offline, either for routine maintenance or to evaluate corrosion risks.
That's an economic crisis spurred by the Ukraine war is casting darkness on the streets of Egypt as the government dims lights to free up energy for export and bolster hard currency reserves. Take a look. Russia's invasion of Ukraine had an immediate impact on Egypt, the world's biggest wheat importer, which has relied on the ex-Soviet states for over 80% of its grain. Egypt, which turned to the International Monetary Fund for a loan after the war erupted, is pumping more natural gas abroad to increase its foreign currency reserves, a move that has come in for criticism. And while the government announced electricity rationing this month, signs of wastage elicit scorn. The country's vital tourism sector has also been hit by the Ukraine conflict, cutting the flow of holidaymakers to a country still hurting from the 2011 revolution and COVID-19 pandemic. Economic growth slowed to 3.2% in the fourth quarter of 2021 to 2022 against 7.7% last year, although annual expansion was 6.6%. Despite the better than expected annual figure, the government said growth had tapered off in the wake of global political and economic developments. Egypt is negotiating an IMF loan to help mitigate the fallout from the Ukraine war on the country, where 30% of the 103 million population lives in poverty. But the talks have stretched out for 6 months, raising eyebrows among analysts. Cairo had previously secured a $12 billion IMF loan in 2016 that required it to slash subsidies and devalue the pound. In 2020, Egypt received 2 more loans, including $5.4 billion tied to reforms and $2.8 billion to tackle COVID.
The pandemic has caused more poverty to the people in need as the economy slows down and many lost their jobs. As part of the Care for Humanity program of the Iglesia ni Cristo through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, the church has extended to provide assistance in Red Deer and Alberta in Canada. Janina De La Paz Rufino from Canada files this story.
Red Deer is one of the largest cities in Alberta, located 90 minutes between Calgary and Edmonton, along one of the busiest highways in Alberta. While the city sits on a beautiful rolling hills, the city has not been immune to the impact of the pandemic. And until now, some Central Albertans like Martha have seen their quality of life not change for the better.
Well, the big thing is the COVID. Since COVID happened, everything had just went down. My husband lost his job, so we live in the government housing right now.
And residents like Edward fighting to make ends meet.
There are a lot of people who are still struggling, even though our economy is slowly getting back together. There's a lot of people that are, do I pay gas? Do I pay my phone bill? Do I pay my rent? It's which one can I put off till next month?
All the current challenges of Central Albertans, and even with charities and government programs working to lessen the impact presented by COVID and provide daily living needs in Red Deer, challenges still arise in connecting people to the help they need. For residents and charitable groups in Red Deer, they would experience an event that would lessen those challenges. An event held at the Gary W. Harris Games Center as a continuation of the campaign to fight poverty and lessen suffering among people throughout Canada. And the Care for Humanity project made its timely arrival now to provide assistance in Alberta.
Canada do have 4.9 million people who live in poverty. And here in Alberta alone, in Alberta region, based on report, there are 150,000 people who live in poverty. For example, in Edmonton, 1 out of 10 people lives in poverty. And when we speak of Calgarian people, there are 77,000 people who also live in poverty. Given those numbers, we can see that the executive minister of the church is right in conducting this Care for Humanity.
The fifth stop of the project Care for Humanity, the ongoing intensified humanitarian efforts of the Church of Christ through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation to help provide to those in dire need. And now it's here for residents in Red Deer and those traveling throughout Alberta.
I'm always struggling with groceries and things like that. And when you go to the food bank, it's always expired stuff. So I'm like, well, yeah, I'll go get a bag.
Bags filled with food and daily living items. As a matter of fact, 2,000 bags donated, and answering one of the concerns of the resident, putting food on the table.
Well, now I have something to cook tonight, so which is good. And that's a lot of help.
It is very important for everybody to have food, to make sure that people are not hungry. And it was so heartwarming to see all the care packages that were provided and how your church cares about others.
A timely answer to the concerns of residents in Red Deer and an exercise of true faith of Church of Christ members.
The one that was held here today in the province of Alberta is the latest one, but will certainly not be the last one. This is in obedience to the teachings and will of the Almighty God. Members of the Church of Christ are ready to unite and lend a helping hand to our fellow men.
Truly, it has been such a humbling experience to see how many people we were able to help. Our Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, is striving to do all he can to make sure that those in need experience the love and care of God through the Church of Christ.
And this help did not extend only to residents, but to community groups and charities working hard also to help their community. Groups like Care for Newcomers, Catholic Social Services, the John Howard Society of Red Deer, and the Mustard Seed received monetary donations that would help in the numerous needs of the community.
And we want to thank the Church Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo Manalo, and also the President of the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, Brother Lucerio Y. Santos, for approving of this activity.
I didn't know what to expect when I got here. And I was just amazed by what Care for Humanity was for our community. Seeing all of those food bags and the gifts that are going out to the community, it was amazing. Beyond that, we have 4 charities in Red Deer who receive donations, and they do such important work.
There's always that spirit of generosity. So it just really intensifies that the Church of Christ, Iglesia ni Cristo, does not just feed the soul through spiritual and through the evangelism, but also feeds not only the community, but also tries to make sure that poverty is out of the question. So there's always that generous help from the church. And so I saw that in this event.
The people of Canada are the recipient of this great love and concern of the Executive Minister. And also this is a manifestation of their great love and concern to the people and also to the government, knowing that the government showed their love and appreciation to the 108th anniversary of the Iglesia ni Cristo and the 50th of the Church of Christ here in Canada by giving recognitions and proclamations for the church.
Even though this is the last stop for the Care for Humanity project in a series of destinations in bringing help to those in need, it isn't the final destination. As long as congregations throughout Canada continue to serve God, and especially members continue to exercise the true faith, it's never a question of when or where, but how much more care will be given. Janina De La Paz Rufino for Matana Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, China shuts world's largest electronics market due to COVID outbreak. French environmentalists say cruise ships should be banned from port in Marseille. And the Philippines will host the 2023 FIBA. Matanang Agila International will be right back. Please don't go away.
together natin inaalam ang mga balita.
Pangmalakasan ang ating power kapag tayo ay together.
Nakikipagkulitan kasama kayo together.
Together tayo sa lungkot at saya sa bawat umaga. Isang taon na tayo together, mga kada!
Na-amnesia na ako. Hindi ako makatulog eh.
Insomnia yun.
Hindi ko na maalala kung paano ako matulog eh. Ano ginagawa ko dito?
Para sa larong tago-taguan. Okay? Bilang ka na!
Bilang ng 10, nakatago na kayo. Aha!
Lolo, hindi mo na kailangan magpasalamat sa akin. Dahil sinave ko ang buhay mo.
Sa aming bagong tahanan. Say hi, tayo.
Hi! Bossing Poleng, meron akong kwento.
Yay! Story time!
Itago nyo na lang ako sa pangalang Jojo.
Jojo nga po pala. Boyfriend ko.
Good evening po.
Ikaw!
Kuya ko nga dyan!
May bago tayong tambayan.
Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's get together. Sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
Elon Musk has sent a letter to Twitter highlighting additional reasons to terminate the $44 billion deal. Musk filed a 13D with the SEC, noting an official termination letter had been sent on August 29. The letter highlighted the Twitter whistleblower as another reason to call off the merger. The Tesla boss hopes that allegations made by the former Twitter security chief, Peter Zatko, about major security gaps and problematic practices at the firm will bolster his case. According to court documents made public, Musk's attorneys served Zatko with a subpoena demanding he shares any documents or messages regarding the impact of spam and false accounts on Twitter's activity, dating back to January 2019. Zatko was also ordered to answer questions on the record for Musk lawyers on September 9, but his appearance at the deposition would be involuntary.
Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani announced an investment of $25 billion to launch 5G networks in India, aiming to strengthen its grip on one of the world's fastest-growing smartphone markets. In his annual speech delivered virtually to shareholders of Reliance Industries, India's most valuable company, Asia's second richest person, said he believes digital freedom is the birthright of every Indian.
Using 5G technology, we can now deliver breakthrough increases in broadband speed, network capacity, and number of connected users, while dramatically reducing latency. We are committed to make India the largest data-powered economy in the world, even ahead of China and the United States.
A pan-India rollout will follow, Ambani said, with an aim to cover every district in the country by December of 2023, an area of 3.3 million square kilometers. The country's long-delayed 5G push comes as the world's sixth largest economy tries to bridge a technology gap with rivals such as South Korea, China, and the United States.
China's southern city of Shenzhen shut down the world's largest electronics market and suspended public transport nearby as authorities enforced neighborhood-wide lockdowns in response to a small number of COVID cases. Shenzhen, an international technology hub of 18 million people, reported just 35 infections, including 11 asymptomatic cases. Officials said the outbreak is mainly driven by the new subvariant Omicron BF.15, which they said is more transmittable and harder to detect. Huaqiangbei, a busy shopping area home to thousands of stalls selling computer components, mobile phone parts, and microchips, is among 3 neighborhoods placed under a mandatory 4-day lockdown in Fujian district, according to the district government. Residents in those neighborhoods are forbidden to leave their homes except for COVID testing, which they are required to undergo daily until Thursday. All businesses in the affected areas are shut down, except for supermarkets, pharmacies, and hospitals. Restaurant dining is also suspended, with only takeaways allowed. Videos shared by residents on social media show metal barriers erected outside residential buildings, blocking residents from leaving. China is one of the last places in the world still enforcing stringent zero-COVID measures, which rely on sweeping digital surveillance, mass testing, extensive quarantines, and snap lockdowns.
Cruise ships have become the target of environmentalists in the French city of Marseille. Activists blame the big boats for increasing air pollution in France's second-largest city. They say the solution is to outrightly ban cruises. Earlier this month, Marseille Mayor Benoit Payan launched a petition to end pollution from all ships in the city's port. He tweeted that levels of pollution in port cities are not acceptable. Payan claims the ships emit as much pollution as 1 million cars. The cruise ship industry, which has been hard hit by the pandemic, has responded by highlighting the economic benefits cruises bring to the city. Restaurant owners in Marseille say business is up 20% because of cruise passengers and crew going ashore.
The Philippines will host the FIBA World Cup next year. According to Senator Sonny Angara, who is also the chairman of the Basketball Association of the Philippines, he already had a meeting with FIBA officials in preparation for the Philippines' hosting duties, which it will share with Indonesia and Japan. Angara said that hosting the 2023 FIBA World Cup will give the Philippines a great opportunity to showcase itself as both a basketball-loving nation and a destination for tourism. The last time the Philippines hosted the FIBA World Cup was in 1978. Meanwhile, Senator Christopher Bongo, chairman of the Senate Committee on Sports, said there are many venues that the organizer can consider for the World Cup, like the Philippine Arena and MOA Arena. Serena Williams recently graced the black and white cover of Time magazine with the words "The Greatest" written across above, and it's circulating social media. This comes at the heels of the tennis superstar's recent announcement of her retirement. But Williams, recognized as the world's best female tennis player in history, is still hitting the tennis courts as part of her farewell tournament, which was attended by high-profile guests, including Bill Clinton, Anna Wintour, and Queen Latifah. On Monday, she beat Danka Kovinic of Montenegro in the first round of her 21st U.S. Open, which was followed by a blue carpet special tribute for Williams at the Arthur Ashe Stadium. On Wednesday, the soon-to-be 41-year-old and 23 Grand Slam champion will go against Anett Kontaveit of Estonia for the second round. The U.S. Open is expected to be Williams' last match before her retirement.
Mexican boxing star Saul Canelo Alvarez trains ahead of defending his 4 super middleweight world champion titles fight against Kazakh Gennady GGG Golovkin. The 32-year-old Alvarez, who is from Guadalajara, Mexico, and has lived and trained in San Diego, California, has 57 wins, 2 losses with 39 knockouts. He has won multiple world titles across 4 weight classes and has long been considered one of the best pound-for-pound boxers and ranked 8th on Forbes magazine's most recent highest-paid athletes list. The first meeting with Golovkin came in September of 2017 and resulted in a controversial draw, with many observers believing Golovkin deserved the decision. Alvarez won a close decision 1 year later in a bout many labeled the 2018 fight of the year. Golovkin has 42 wins and only 1 loss with 37 knockouts. He holds the WBA and IBF titles at 160 pounds. The highly anticipated third fight between Alvarez and Golovkin will be on September 17 in Las Vegas, Nevada.
A hasty change of outfit worked wonders for Bianca Andreescu as she powered into the second round of the U.S. Open. Take a look. The 22-year-old Canadian star, winner of the U.S. Open crown in 2019, overcame Harmony Tan to keep alive her dream of a second Grand Slam title. The former world number 4 arrived on the court in a navy blue skirt, but with gusts of wind blowing her outfit around, she pleaded with the chair umpire to make a change. Andreescu could be heard complaining it's not her fault, but it's Nike's fault for having a dress that is so bad. Meanwhile, she quickly returned to the court wearing shorts and a white top. After securing victory, Andreescu later explained her change of outfit, saying the dress only bothered her because of the heavy wind. She apologized to anyone she disrespected, and she said she hopes that she can be with Nike for the rest of her life.
Well, Harry Styles doesn't want your chicken nuggets. During the pop superstar's Love on Tour concert at New York City's Madison Square Garden, a fan threw a couple of chicken nuggets on stage. According to fan videos on social media, Styles refused to eat them. The Grammy Award-winning singer playfully reminded his fans that he is a vegetarian and he does not eat chicken or meat. Styles is currently headlining a residency where he is performing 15 shows. The As It Was singer also recently won Album of the Year at the 2022 MTV VMAs.
Thousands of musicians from different orchestras, philharmonics, and schools in Bogota gather at Simon Bolivar Park to perform the world's largest concert. The event, which involved some 16,000 people playing 6 works simultaneously, celebrates the final report of the Truth Commission on the Colombian conflict, according to Assistant Conductor of the Bogota Philharmonic Orchestra, Rubian Zuluaga. From each one playing his instrument, they can build something together by recognizing each other as interlocutors. Zuluaga says everyone is going to interpret in a different way, but all will meet to build something together, and that is the most powerful message of the concert.
Podemos entender también cómo desde esa
Here's a quick look back on what happened today in history, August 30. In 1896, prompted by the spread of rebellion led by Andrés Bonifacio, Spanish Governor-General Ramon Blanco declared a state of war in the provinces of Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Pampanga, Tarlac, Laguna, Batangas, and Nueva Ecija, and placed them under martial law. In 1951, the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States of America was signed in Washington, D.C. The overall accord contains 8 articles and dictates for both nations to support each other if an external party attacks the Philippines or the United States. In 2021, the United States ends its longest ever war of 20 years in Afghanistan as the last military evacuation plane flies out of Kabul.
And to help you go through your week, here's a quote from H. Jackson Brown Jr., an American author. The best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. See beyond the now.
Yeah, and no regrets.
No regrets.
If you keep doing your best every day.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates at our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.